Welcome back to another edition of Prognosticus, brought to you by the Varsity Voices Media Network, your home for Chicago Catholic League football. I'm Joe Frevoletti, and here with me is my co-host Dan Frevoletti, and we're breaking down this week's slate of matchups across the Chicago Catholic League, from some heavyweight clashes to some redemption games, some classic rivalries, to teams searching for a little momentum, and some of those teams with their backs against the wall. We'll dive into the storylines, spotlight the players to watch, and give you our take on how each battle might play out under those Friday night lights. We've got every angle covered, and the stage is set for another dramatic weekend of Chicago Catholic League football.
If you are looking to buy or sell a home, contact RE/MAX Realtor and Circle of Legends recipient Christopher Cobb. Let Chris's extensive negotiating experience work to guide you on all of your real estate buying and selling needs. Contact Christopher now to discuss the right strategy for your personalized real estate buying and selling plan. His number is 630-420-0070, or you can visit his website at christophercobb.com.
So Dan, there's one thing I didn't mention in the intro, and there's some really big news that's happening this weekend, which has to deal with the Chicago Catholic League and a merger, so to speak, of two teams. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, we are here. We are merging Bennett Academy and St. Ignatius. My daughter.
Is that news? Yes.
Yeah, right. My daughter's getting married to a St. Ignatius guy, Teddy Hans. My daughter Sydney Fravoletti. They get married Saturday, so it's really exciting. Hosted by Ted Hans down here in Southern California. So it is. It's really exciting, Joe, and they're a great family. Teddy is a great guy, proud St. Ignatius alum. Always asks what the score is, and obviously I keep my daughter filled in on what Bennett's doing. So we are thrilled to be to merging these two Catholic League families together.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you.
Both the families. Yeah.
Yes.
And when we get to the Ignatius game, you'll have to give us what you think your future son-in-law's pick would be in that game. All right?
Sounds good.
All right. So let's get started here with some of the games and some really good ones, Dan. Let's get started with the Mount Carmel versus Brother Rice game, which is going to be huge.
Serious talent on the field in this game, Joe.
Serious talent. Both teams 5-0. Both teams pretty dominant in taking care of their opponents so far this year. Got star power on both sides of the ball for both teams. So what are you thinking in this one, Dan?
Joe, I'm thinking with some of these games, these big games, I know I often say it doesn't necessarily matter where it's at, and I'm not sure that it does, but I think with Mount Carmel being home, although, I've gone back and forth because Brother Rice, we've talked about it, team on a mission, right? It's kind of how it seems for them. And,
right.
But I still think Mount Carmel's the best team in the state. And so because of that, because of being at home, because they aren't coming off a real emotional victory, I think I'm going to go with Mount Carmel in this one, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this feels like this is a game that might come down to some kind of late adjustments or adjustments after halftime, and I think it's going to be a fairly close game. But I'm going to pick Mount Carmel too, but I'm going to pick them by a slim margin, maybe a touchdown or 10 points, something like that. Because I think Brother Rice is going to keep it close, keep themselves in the game. And who knows, if a break or two goes their way in this game, it could be a different outcome. But I'm going with Mount Carmel.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to, how about IC and St. Francis? Battle of the, I guess you can call them Western suburbs, right?
Oh, yeah. That's another big game this week, Joe. I mean, there's some red letter games. Within the division play. So St. Francis and IC is a really big one. And I think St. Francis is getting better and better and better. And while I think IC is improving as well, I think St. Francis is almost to the point where they can't be stopped. That's kind of how it feels to me. Um, so I think with the offense, that offensive firepower they have with that wide receiving core, Zach Washington and Milivojevic and those guys, they are just hitting on all cylinders right now. So
Yeah.
while I see plays really good defense and they're very swarmy, I call them. I just think that St. Francis has a lot of answers, and so I'm going to go with St. Francis in this game.
Yeah, I think these are really like two similar teams. They have decent run games, right? But they do rely on their quarterbacks and their wide receivers, and they kind of rely on the big play too, right?
Yeah.
As far as marching the ball down, and grinding it out, that's not these two teams, from what I've seen so far this year. So, to me, it's going to be who can be the most explosive, right, and make the most big plays or big chunk plays. And when I look at that and I think who's got the most players who can do that, I think that's St. Francis. So I'm leaning towards St. Francis in this game as well. I'm going to pick them, Dan.
All right. Probably in a close game, right?
Probably in a close game. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I think we can say that. It's going to be another week for that.
It is going to be another week for that. I don't think it's going to be like last week where it was,
Oh no.
the blowout week, right?
Right. Right.
Not
Blowout
this week.
City. Yeah.
Blowout City, right? Yeah. All right, so we've got Nazareth and St. Rita. I think this is going to be another close game too, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this takes place I believe it's at Naz in LaGrange Park. Um, St. Rita is 2-3.
One.
Seems
Oh yeah. 2 and 3. Yes.
2-3. Yeah. While Naz is 4-1, right? Yeah. And I think when I looked at this game, Dan, I was looking at it from a standpoint of who's got the most balanced offense as far as throwing the ball and running the ball, as well as the number of weapons, that there are out there on the field. I wasn't really looking at the defenses. I was looking at the offenses, and I think Nazareth just has too many weapons out there on the field. Last game, Jackson Faya, close enough, right?
Doing the best we can. Yep.
He got the full start finally. Threw for over 300 yards. So I would imagine he's going to be in there, right at the beginning of the game, and he's got those weapons on the outside like Sestone and some others. So I just think they're going to be a little bit too much and have a little too many weapons for St. Rita. So I'm going with Nazareth in this game.
Joe, I'm with you, and I'm going to compare Nazareth and St. Francis in that I think they're getting better, and more explosive, and to the point where anyone's going to have a hard time stopping them for a complete game.
Right.
And I'm with you, and although we really like St. Rita and Stephen Armbruster and some of the guys they have on that team, I think Naz is on a roll, and that it will be, but St. Rita knows, you win this, you've got no, or you lose this, you've got no wiggle room. So,
Right.
so it's a backs against the wall game for them. So, but that being said, I think, like I said, I think Naz is too good, and getting better. So my pick is for Nazareth.
Yeah. Okay. We're all on the same page
We are
so far.
lockstep.
Lockstep. All right. This next game is one that I think is going to be one of the more interesting games to watch this weekend, and it's Joliet Catholic and Notre Dame. Normally in the past, we would have talked about Joliet Catholic and, maybe would have picked them as a, 2-touchdown favorite or something along those lines. This year's a little bit different, right, for Joliet Catholic. It hasn't gone quite the way they wanted to. Definitely backs against the wall. For Joliet Catholic, they've got to win out, right? And I think that's going to be, I honestly think that's going to be the edge in this game for Joliet Catholic, is they know they have got to get a win, and they've got to do it against a pretty tough Notre Dame squad. That's really improved, over the course of the first several weeks of the season. So I like what Joliet Catholic is doing now on offense. I think they're kind of settling into what they're good at. They had they had a tough week last week, but I think they bounce back this week and they get the win against Notre Dame.
Yeah, Joe, I think it's probably pretty similar. Like you said, where it once was a two touchdown, you know, uh, gap between these two teams. I think it might be like 7 points or 3 points.
Right.
I think Notre Dame is improving. I think you're starting to see that with some of these teams that they are figuring it out. And but I think Joliet Catholic still has a little too much for them, on both sides of the ball,
Yeah.
and it still can be difficult to stop. Can probably be pretty multiple. Starting to find a running game. I think Notre Dame, they've got to be successful running the ball, um, to compete in this game. But I think JCA has too much, so I'm going to go with Joliet Catholic in this one.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna let you start with this next game, Dan, because I had no way to figure out how to predict it. I even dialed up my prognosticus and said, "Hey, I need some help here with
Yeah,
this game," and he was no help. He was busy. So he said he'd call me back. It didn't happen. So
right. Mine's in a cage at home, so yeah, he's
that's right.
irritated.
You had to
Yeah,
leave yours at home. You
right,
couldn't make the long trip. Yeah.
right.
But the game is Providence and Marist. And I know you've seen a little bit more of Providence than I have.
Yeah,
And Marist, I thought last week, came away with a really good win over IC, right? But and I was thinking, IC and Providence, are they kind of similar in talent and the types of things that they do, but not really. But
yeah.
you tell me what you think in this game, Dan.
Joe, it's going to be two teams looking to pound the football.
Okay.
They are dedicated to the run. They are definitely more successful running the ball than throwing the ball. Both quarterbacks, depending on who plays for Marist, um, are very capable runners. If Marist gets their starter back, Luke the Temple, then they open up. They probably have the edge in a passing game. But
Yeah.
if he's not back, they are definitely 70-30 run to pass. So Providence is the same way. Super talented quarterback with his feet, Vita. And so, it is going to come right down to the wire. It might be one of these where, you know, every score is matched with another score. And
Yeah.
I think in the end, I think Marist is figuring it out. I think they might be a little bit better. Um, I think they've got their feet under them. So I'm picking Marist in this one, Joe.
Yeah. I'm picking Marist too, and I primarily, I think they really developed a little bit of momentum,
Hmm.
last week with that
Yeah.
win. It was a good win over a really good IC team.
Right.
Uh, and they started out 0-4. And things didn't start out well, so now I feel like with that win, they might have some momentum built up now, and maybe they can build on that and do some additional things as well. So I'm gonna pick Marist in this game too.
Yeah, and all you have to do, high school belief is such a big deal. So you get that first win, then it can start to steamroll for you because you believe.
Right. Yeah, you start to believe
Yeah.
team confidence is up.
Yep.
They're going to come out soaring, I'm sure, and ready to play. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
So yeah, I think it'll be a good week for Marist.
I do too. All right. So DePaul Prep and St. Viator, two teams that have had some difficulty this year over the first 5 weeks of the season. DePaul Prep has kind of been up and down, but it's not the same DePaul Prep team as last year. But they've got some things that I feel like they're trying to develop or they're trying to rely on. I think they're looking towards a running game a little bit more than they did last year, trying to play into that. And St. Viator, I know has I like the way their defense plays a lot, but I do feel like they've had trouble, like you've mentioned, in several of our episodes. They seem to move the ball great between the 20s, and then have a hard time getting that ball in the end zone. Um, I think DePaul Prep has enough here, talent wise, size wise. I think they're going to be bigger than St. Viator as well, and I think they're going to try and control the ball. And I think that's going to work for them in this game. And I'm gonna pick DePaul Prep in this one.
Yeah, Joe, the other thing I've said about St. Viator for the past couple weeks, they're struggling stopping the run. And,
Hmm.
for you to say that DePaul Prep is focusing on their running game, and having some success doesn't really mesh well with a team that is struggling to stop the run.
Right.
And so, that's kind of football 101. If you can run the ball, successfully, you've got a great shot to win.
Yeah.
And so, do you know where this game's at, Joe?
I believe I do. This is at DePaul Prep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think either way, I'd probably pick DePaul Prep regardless of where it's at. I think they're in a better place. I think St. Viator might be struggling a little bit. They probably have a lot of doubt, right? And if things don't go bad, if they get inside the 20 and don't score on their first drive,
Yeah.
you get the here we go again thing. So,
Right.
but I think the bigger issue is that they're having a hard time stopping the running game. And
Hmm.
and in high school football, you have got to be able to do that. So my pick is for DePaul Prep
Okay. So still, we are in
in
simpatico,
lockstep.
in lockstep. That's it. Okay. All right.
In simpatico. I like that better.
We'll come up with something.
Yeah.
In lockstep. I'll remember that. In lockstep.
Okay.
Okay. Um, yeah. So this game, when Bennett and St. Patrick, I thought, oh, Dan is going to have a tough time with this one because you've been on you've been picking Shamrocks
Yeah.
uh, this year, and
Right.
yes,
I've been on
and
the off the. Let's see. What at the pot of gold? I don't know. What can we do? We've got to do
we
something.
got to come
Pick
up with
really
something
over.
there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
I
worry.
think.
We
I
know.
think St. Pat's is. I think St. Pat's is probably a more complete team than Bennett.
Mhm.
Um, I was surprised by the score last week that they got hit, as hard as they did,
Yeah.
and beat as badly as they did. I wasn't necessarily as surprised by Bennett losing to Mount Carmel the way they did, but
Right.
I still think St. Paul or St. Pat's is probably the more complete team.
Yeah.
So I don't, and I know we didn't Bennett didn't have their starting quarterback last week. I don't know if he's back, and if he's
Right.
back, if he's fully healthy. So I think it sets up for a St. Pat's win. And while I'd like to pick Bennett because my
Because of
daughter's
them.
getting married, and I'm
Right.
from Bennett, and I was going to pick Bennett and Saint
Right.
Ignatius, but I'm going to go with St. Pat's, Joe, on this one.
Okay. Yeah. When I looked at this game, I thought, Bennett has probably got more of the, I don't know, maybe not necessarily explosive, but they probably have a little bit more from a big play standpoint
Yeah,
on offense. But what I think St. Pat's is going to try and do with this game is just out physical Bennett at the line of scrimmage, and I think they're going to be able to do that. They're big, they're strong, they move people off the ball. They're
great
pretty
points.
balanced,
Yep,
yeah, and I think they're just going to try and march the ball up and down the field or grind it out and keep Bennett's offense off the field. So I think over the course of 4 quarters, that is just going to wear down Bennett, and I'm going with St. Pat's as well in this one.
okay. I
All
thought we
right,
might differ there, but
yeah.
yeah,
Well, maybe we'll differ here, Dan. Leo versus De La Salle.
okay.
What do you think? What do you think on this one? I mean,
Big
this is
game.
that good game.
Yeah, and a
Yeah,
big game, right? I mean,
big
I
game.
think both
Yeah,
these teams see this as probably their best opportunity to get a win.
yeah,
And for me, I think Leo's just slightly ahead of where De La Salle is.
right,
Probably very similar as far as ages of teams, but I think Leo's just a step ahead. I think De La Salle, like I said a million times, for them to finish the season is a victory, and I know they
right,
don't want to hear that, and the coaching staff doesn't want to hear that. So, But that being said, I think Leo's just a little more polished, a little more complete, plays a little bit better defense than De La Salle, and
Yeah.
so I think Leo gets this one this year.
Yeah, I think Leo gets this year as well. And, there's going to be a ton of talent on that field on both sides of the ball, young
Yeah.
talent. Primarily on the De La Salle side. But I know Leo has some young talent too, but they've got a little bit more experience, I think, than De La Salle. They also have got a taste of what it's like to win this
Hmm.
year, which is huge, as you know, for any kind of program that's struggled over the years. And I think that's going to be the difference here for them. I mean, they know what it takes to win. I think they're going to try and control the ball a bit. They can both run and throw the ball. They've got a good defense.
Right.
You know that. So I think they've probably got a little much for De La Salle, a little too much for De La Salle at this point in De La Salle's development. So I'm gonna go with Leo in this game.
Yeah, they feel like they're further ahead as a program, don't they?
They
Just a
do
little bit, almost
just a
like if
little bit.
yeah, like a half a year ahead.
Yes. Okay, so Marmion versus Marion Catholic. I think this game is out at Marion Catholic. So
Okay,
what is that? It's a terrible drive, right?
tough commute of the week.
Tough
Yes.
commute of the week. Yes.
Yep.
You don't happen to know how far apart they are from
I
each other.
don't. I don't
Uh,
have that. Give me a
uh,
minute. You do your spiel, and I'll find out.
yeah. Yeah.
Make your
Well,
pick.
the one thing I do think this is going to be a close game, relatively close game. Um, I think both teams are pretty similar in the way they like to run their offenses. Their defenses are similar as well. They're kind of stout up the middle. They got good linebackers on both sides for both these teams. The one thing that I think is going to have an effect is what happened to Marion Catholic last week against Carmel, right? Anytime somebody puts 70 points up on you, that is demoralizing. And even though you try and forget about it and it's like, okay, we're moving on to next week. And I'm sure they've done that, throughout the week and in their practices. But, that is that's something which is hard to come back from. Mentally, I think it's a real drain on a team and a program. So I'm going to pick Marmion over Marion in this game.
Yeah, I think Marmion's got bigger team. They've got the ability to run the ball really well.
Yeah,
What's different is Carmel was throwing the ball all over the place last week. They were ridiculous,
yeah,
and making a ton of defensive plays too. There were a lot of turnovers in that game. I think Marmion takes a little bit better care of the football. I think they probably will control the clock a little bit. So yeah, I'm also picking Marmion in this one, Joe. I
yeah.
think it's they're kind of they're looking like the best team in that red division.
Right. Yeah, they are. Okay. What do you think about Fenwick and St. Lawrence, our next
That is,
game?
I think that's gonna be a brawl. I
Yeah,
think I think it is two tough teams getting after it. I like Fenwick in this game. I think they are like the De La Salle and Leo. I think Fenwick's a little just further ahead, more established, and Coach Swanson at St. Lawrence still trying to get things, how he wants them there. But I think Fenwick had a hiccup last week, right? Did they or no 2 weeks ago,
2 weeks
but
ago.
at Montini. But yeah, back in the division this week, and I think they take care of business against St. Lawrence. I'm
Yeah,
picking.
I expect this to be one of the more like compelling matchups of the
Yeah.
week.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking of my back and forth, first half, but I do see the talent and experience on Fenwick and what they've been able to do over the course of the first 5 weeks of the season. Um, I see them kind of pulling away in the second half. Fenwick has that ability not only to do the big play strikes, right, but they can also grind the ball out against you as well. And I think they're going to try and do that a little bit more against St. Lawrence. So I see Fenwick probably having just a little more on both sides of the ball that's going to take them over the top in this game. And I'm going to pick Fenwick in this game as well.
Yeah, I think St. Lawrence is not quite ready to have that complete offensive game against a team as talented as Fenwick.
Yeah. All right. So we've got two more games here. One is this is a big matchup too. Like we talked, Mount Carmel, Brother Rice, Montini, and Carmel. Two I don't know, two heavyweights on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And we know Montini's their defense is really coming along. I think every week it's gotten better and better, and their offense. I wouldn't call it like flashy, but I think it's really steady, and they can mix in the run with Isaac Alexander, and then boom, they pop that big pass, or Izzy Abrams, can break off a big run at any point. So Montini, I think, is poised to have just another really good season. They're 5-0, so they're already on their way. But the one thing Carmel, I think, is still kind of an enigma to me.
Yeah.
They'll come out one week and they put up 70 points, and then they'll come out the next week and kind of, maybe lay an egg or something, something like that. So to me, it depends on which Carmel team shows up in this game, and the caliber of team that they're playing is very, very high and very difficult. So I think Montini is able to bottle up Trey Taylor and the Carmel offense a bit in this, and I'm gonna pick Montini to go 6-0 and win this game.
All right. Joe, I'm going to differ here. We're going to differ. I'm going to go with Carmel. Yeah, I think I think they are like we've talked about. They are on a mission, and
Yeah.
you've got two of the top 10 quarterbacks in the state in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and underclassmen, probably the top two underclassmen maybe, or two out of two, top five for sure, two out of the top five, and so I think we could see a lot of points in this game.
Yeah.
I think we might be surprised by Carmel's ability to score points,
Yeah.
and just the way that they can do that. They've also played really strong defense. I like how they get after it defensively. So, but I think the offenses are going to rule this game. I think Carmel takes this in a high scoring game.
Okay. All right. Well, if that's a high scoring game, that is going to be a really fun one to watch.
It'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So our last game, and this is Loyola versus St. Ignatius, right? Since you're merging with a St. Ignatius alum,
Yeah.
you got to go with this one. You got to let him weigh in too, or do you tell me where you think his pick might be?
It's funny. They are from an Ignatius era where their football wasn't as strong as it is now. So they are like, we can't, no way we can beat Loyola, and they're too good. So I tend to agree, but I think St. Ignatius is getting better, and I liked what they did against Mount Carmel. The couple mistakes that cost them in that game, let it get away from them. They looked really good against DePaul Prep. So I think it's going to be a closer game than people think. But I do think Loyola pulls this out in a close one. But don't be surprised that it's close if it is, because Ignatius has the formula starting to work. It is starting to work where they're getting consistent play from their running game. They are figuring out, that their fullbacks are studs. They rotate fullbacks, so they seem to have things clicking a little bit. But I still think Loyola has, too much firepower, can score over the top, get a 2-touchdown lead early. That makes it really tough for St. Ignatius.
Yeah. All right. I expect something more competitive than maybe some others might think as well, and I agree with you that Ignatius seems to be getting things, right. They're developing over the course of the season, which I'm sure Coach Miller, didn't necessarily want, but, they are getting better. I feel like with every week that goes by. Um, you know, Unfortunately, Loyola has got, how I like star power, Dan, and,
Yeah.
the big play ability.
Oh yeah.
Loyola just seems to have that where I think Ignatius, the way they're going to stay in this game, if they're going to stay in this game, is by just grinding the ball out. And they would have to do that against a really good defense in Loyola. And I don't think that you can do that for a full game. So, that I'm going to pick Loyola over Ignatius in this game.
All right. So I picked against both the in the wedding, both parties in the wedding picked against the merger. So maybe
Great.
they won't hear this before. They're going to be busy, but
Would
yeah,
you,
the,
yeah.
uh,
Would you rather this come out on Sunday morning?
yes, right, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'm gonna have to explain to all the alums that are there from both schools why I picked
Right.
against them. So
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Okay. So that'll wrap up this week's Prognosticus episode here on the Varsity Voices Media Network. The Chicago Catholic League never disappoints. Every game brings its own storylines, surprises. Now it's time to see which of our predictions hold up once the whistle blows and the games get played. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and follow along on our socials for updates, highlights, some game day coverage as well. And don't forget to check back after the weekend for our full recap. Until then, enjoy the games, cheer on your teams, and remember, in the Chicago Catholic League, every week is a rivalry week.